If we asked what popped into your head when you heard the word Ireland, mostly half of the world would presumably imagine a green landscape with sheep and fields for miles, whose landscapes end at the entrance of the local pub serving up potatoes and Guinness, the most stereotypical image of Ireland. On the other hand, the more knowledgeable folk would think of the haunting obsession the Irish have with death and its celebration. The less advertised Ireland is exactly this. It's said that the dead have an obsessive hold on the living. To explain more in depth Ireland's so-called obsession with death, we, Natalie, Landi, and Lauren Hoium, will be breaking down Lawrence Taylor's cultural construction of death in Ireland and the documentary Talking to the Dead. From these two sources, we gathered major themes that circulate around Irish traditions and celebrations of death. These themes include the wake versus the funeral, hunger strike deaths, counter-reformation, the role of the cemetery, and new funeral traditions. The wake and the funeral. 2 occasions to lay the dead to rest, yet 2 occasions that vary greatly in their focus. The wake's main concern was social relations between the family of the deceased and the community, whereas the funeral's main concerns was the journey of the deceased. Lawrence Taylor summarized the difference between the wake and the funeral very simply through his words on Connell's death. The funeral was for Connell O'Beam. The wake was for Connie, the gap, a mere separation between casual and solemn. It was believed that during the wake, the corpse was not a part of this world, but wasn't yet a part of the next world. Thus, the family's duty was to keep the corpse merry and celebrated. During the 1900s, the hunger strike brought a new light to the funerary traditions, and the people of Ireland didn't quite know how to react. A group of prisoners were protesting some newly implemented prison laws and went on a hunger strike, which eventually led to their deaths. These deaths raised questions all around the world, and the media did not miss their chance to report all the details. These deaths played such a questioning role in the funerary traditions since thousands attended their burials and funerals. The people were seeking presence to define the deaths as that of a family, a Catholic, a criminal, a hero, or a terrorist. These people dedicated their lives to make a point that would go down in history. The church and the family especially struggled with identifying with the dead. The Catholic Church in Ireland went through many counter-reformations over different centuries. Many of the focuses within these reformations was to infuse more regular church rituals with special power and to take the minds off the foolish, immature traditions surrounding the Merry Wake. As mentioned in many scholarly writings, documents, and lectures, there was clearly much tension between the church and the wake. The Counter-Reformation tried to establish clearly vertical relations in both the social and supernatural sphere. This Reformation recontextualized death as a church-centered experience with its own rituals, discourse, and objects.
The cemetery plays an ambiguous role in death's belief and people's attitudes to the dead. Women in particular will pay visits to the cemetery to connect with their loved ones who have passed. It's a very important scene of ongoing connection with the dead. A graveside was always a terrifying place, but it was less terrifying if you believed there was something else to happen afterwards. Standing at the edge of a grave is a very bleak moment for those that don't believe in an afterlife. This may explain why large numbers of Irish people visit funerals, but very few regularly visit cemeteries. Funeral traditions have changed over time. It wasn't long ago that funeral homes began opening, and the remains of the dead were kept there rather than in the family home. Funeral directors have stolen a lot of the roles of other people. They dress in black like a priest, as well as taking the vestments of the church. They've turned the funeral parlors into mini chapels by decorating them with stained glass windows and taking some of the church's rituals. Other people dig the grave, and a trolley is used to move a coffin instead of people shouldering it. The funeral is a symbolic demonstration of the state the culture is now at.
Eddie Lenihan, a known storyteller who spoke in lecture, touched upon some traditions of death that weren't mentioned in the documentary you're reading surrounding the topic. He spoke about a special type of grave where children who weren't baptized or strangers were buried. The graves usually sat near holy wells and are called keeling.